think there's some misconceptions about the digital asset space that could be very dangerous to community financial institutions right now. It's not just your younger members who are embracing this technology. Actually, there's a substantial amount of data that we have seen and put our hands on that says that it's your high net worth, high deposit members who are exploring this asset class and looking for yield and looking for security and convenience and sovereignty of their wealth. So we've actually seen a significant, hockey-shaped curve.
Alrighty, everybody, what is going on? Welcome back to another CYPRX video breakdown. As you all heard from the Deland CEO, high net worth individuals are currently in the process of searching for yield as they learn about these new digital technologies, i.e. stablecoins, cryptocurrencies, tokenized deposits, and tokenized real-world assets. I cannot stress enough that now is the time to continue to further your education in the DeFi ecosystem. In today's video breakdown, we're going to be covering some ongoing developments. I'm going to be playing some video breakdowns for you guys, some clips, showing you all, again, what we are heavily focused on here at CYPRX, and that is never having to sell our utility digital assets for fiat currency, a dead, decaying, dying system that we all know is in the process of being enhanced or replaced by these new digital technologies.
All of the fiat money in the world is depreciating, some a little bit and some faster. And if you count all the fiat money and you calculate the depreciation that they have, it's a gigantic value.
So starting off here in today's video breakdown, by the way, if you guys enjoy these types of deep dives, these types of videos, hopefully motivating you guys to get that mindset right, do me a favor, smash that thumbs up button and subscribe. We are going to be discussing and talking about the Metallicus ecosystem today. So if you are a holder of Metal or XPR or a loan, again, do me a favor, smash that thumbs up button and subscribe. This one's going to be a nice one. I said here in this post, sadly, many will miss out on this generational wealth transfer, not because the opportunity wasn't there, but because they followed the wrong voices. They'll listen to those telling them to sell for fiat. They'll believe the ones calling DeFi a scam. They'll dismiss BSA-compliant blockchains as meme projects. This shift in how value is generated, stored, and transferred won't be easy to navigate. You will need to be plugged in.
Here's what will happen. If credit unions don't get plugged into that future of money and incorporate this type of money into their operations, then I'm sure JP Morgan and others and, Wells Fargo, Chase, Bank of America, they'll be glad to gobble up market share and service digital for the 21st century, service wealth for the 21st century. So as regulation and legislation develop and become clearer federally and at the state level and global level, it's really important for local FIs to be proactive about getting plugged into this gateway and into these new types of money, so that protecting their place in the stream of money. Here's what I mean by that.
So it's very important that you all get plugged in, because these traditional financial players are going to need to do so. And we want to operate on a level playing field. That is what is now available to us. So underneath of this post, the reason why I'm even, expressing this post to you guys today is because I particularly talking about not selling your digital assets in the future for fiat. And an individual said here, down at the bottom, just to read in the comments, shout out to XRP Shillionaire. Nothing against this individual. This is actually supposed to be positive. So don't take this in a negative light for me reading this individual's comment. And he said, so if you bought Bitcoin in 2012 for $5 each, wouldn't it have been wise to sell, right? So I respectively said back to this individual, because I purchased Bitcoin, relatively speaking, in the early days before Bitcoin's price went parabolic. I don't hold a substantiating amount of Bitcoin, but I do hold a significant amount. And I said here in response to this individual, personally, I lend my Bitcoin out currently right now on Loan Protocol. It's currently earning yield, and I borrowed stablecoins against it that I now use in the DeFi ecosystem to enhance my yield capabilities. Obviously, of course, Loan Protocol built out on the XPR network in the Metallicus ecosystem. Now, I bought my Bitcoin back in 2016, just to give you a rough idea of where I purchased my Bitcoin. Honestly, though, it depends on your personal situation if you need fiat. However, instead of selling your utility assets, you can always lend them out, earn yield on that utility asset, in this case, Bitcoin, borrow against them in stablecoins, and use those stablecoins for your personal expenses if you need fiat. Then pay back your loan and get your utility assets back. Why work so hard to accumulate utility assets just to sell them for fiat currency? Fiat currency is for poor people. Now, if we come down here, I'm not the only person that holds this narrative, this mindset. This is a new mindset, and it is relatively hard to detach yourself from the ideology that you need a bunch of fiat to be successful in this new financial system. Take a second and listen here to Max from PVO1, I believe, and listen to what he says about the importance of not having to sell for fiat.
Is the very beginning. So it's really important that we don't have to go back to the fiat system in order to invest in financial assets.
So it's really important that we don't have to go back and get stuck into the fiat system to invest in these new digital technologies. And loan protocol is one of the ways in which you can do that. Again, here I'm just expressing and being transparent to you guys. Personally, I'm loaning out my Bitcoin, lending out my Bitcoin, and I've borrowed against it. You can see right now my Bitcoin is earning about 2% APY, which is nothing substantial. I mean, on the amount of Bitcoin that I have, it's actually relatively a decent amount of passive income. But just showing you guys that this is all readily available. Now, coming over here, I don't want you guys to just take this from me. Let's listen to other industry leading experts in this space that house and view this same opinion. So here on Snipverse, also built on the XPR network, I said, your digital assets aren't just numbers on a screen. They are powerful financial tools. For decades, the wealthy have been quietly using their assets as collateral to fund lifestyles, invest in new ventures, and grow wealth without ever having to sell. Now, with a smartphone and an internet connection, you all have that same access. And as you heard the gentleman from DeLand, who is partnered with Metallicus, he said the same exact thing, that wealthy individuals are starting to learn and be interested in these yield generation strategies. DeFi, tokenized assets, and crypto lending platforms have opened the doors, and we can now use our digital portfolio to fund lifestyle purchases, access liquidity, and compound long-term wealth. Now more than ever, digital literacy is an absolute must. Take a second and listen to this individual here.
Well, I think I wholeheartedly agree with you on never wanting to sell Bitcoin. And I think, just to elaborate on that, the play that, the very wealthy did over the last few decades was you hold your assets, you want to hold financial assets, because as the dollar has been continually deprecated and depreciated, that pushes up the price of financial assets. One way inflation manifests itself is that the price of Apple stock goes up, right? Because a dollar is now worth less than it was before, which means the price of everything has to go up, including financial assets. So the very wealthy don't denominate their wealth in dollars, as in they don't keep it in cash in the bank. They keep it in financial assets or real assets, which appreciate. And I think for our generation, millennials, Zoomers, the newer generations coming through, a lot of them are priced out of the real estate market, which was what boomers accumulated most of their wealth in, and instead they're looking at alternatives. Real estate can't appreciate at double-digit compounding rates for the next 20 years, because otherwise you're going to end up in a world where a house costs 30 times somebody's annual salary. So it's just mathematically impossible. However, Bitcoin compounded at 54% over the last 7 years. If Bitcoin continues to compound even at a rate north of 20%, it becomes an incredible asset for the younger generations to own, to accumulate wealth. And I think they should look at borrowing against that in the same way that boomers borrow against the equity in their house. So you retain the upside, you don't cop a tax bill, and you can fund lifestyle purchases and continue to compound your wealth.
Now, albeit he's talking about Bitcoin, that is not the only asset that we have the opportunity to do this with, right? And so we really need to understand that this does require a mindset shift, and it does require education on behalf of the beholder in order to really incorporate these strategies successfully. But now, since we're on the discussion topic of, how we can do this on Loan Protocol right now, built out in the Metallicus ecosystem on the XPR network. Well, if we come over here back to this panel discussion with Marshall Hayner and the DeLand CEO, well, Marshall Hayner actually specifically says that in the future, we're going to be able to do this. We're heading into an era where this is going to become the new normal. Take a second here and listen.
It takes some time to get the payment processed on the other end. Now with digital payments with blockchain, you could not only do this locally, but you could do it internationally. You could make a payment to the other side of the world in an instant. And so that's, a big part of the game changer that I see. But also, I think that, we have a debt-based system. You look at credit cards, and unfortunately, a lot of things are predatory, right? Young people get these cards, they get in over their heads on the debt. And if you think about in the future, what would happen in a credit-based system? What would happen in a system where, instead of borrowing against money that you don't have, you borrow against the crypto that you do have or something? And that's really kind of the advent of decentralized finance. I think, what was missing in this was the compliance components, the digital identity, the anti-money laundering built into the blockchain technology itself. That was the piece that was needed to integrate with traditional financial services. That,
as you all heard, we're headed into this future where you're going to be able to borrow against your own assets, and you're not going to have to go to the bank or traditional finance to get a line of credit and so on and so forth. And that is so powerful when you fully understand these capabilities and the now and the ability to utilize them to expand and grow your wealth. Now, since we are listening to Marshall Hayner discuss and talk about this, and we're also talking about how this is all possible in the Metallicus ecosystem, I want you guys to listen to how these individuals talk about how trillions of dollars are going to flood into stablecoins, and they're going to utilize Metallicus.
At the core of the banking operation, let's make it as easy to deal in stable coins for your consumer and your operation as it is to deal in the electronic dollar. And let's take away the reasons that members have to leave institutions and deposit dollars, leave communities, and never come back. It's a wound that we shouldn't be leaving open to fester or suffering the pains of it, frankly, with the technology that's available to the industry through a partnership like this.
So based on what you guys just said, is this table stakes now? Because, a few years ago, this is kind of a fun thing to do, get involved with this type of stuff.
Well, look,
it sounds like it's going to be...
Great question. I personally believe it was table stakes about 5 years ago.
Oh, wow.
The reality is that earlier this month, Bitcoin as a single network, as a single digital asset class, eclipsed the entire asset size of the credit union industry.
Wow.
So let me restate that. The market cap of one token, measured in liquidity, not in asset size, the market cap of one token surpassed the total asset base of the entire credit union industry. And somehow the industry is still largely asleep at the wheel on this one.
Yeah.
So you're now dealing with a financial institution, a decentralized financial reality that's larger than an entire industry. I think, it's fair to call it table stakes at that point.
Okay, good. Okay, based on that, next steps for you guys. What's on the plate next? Marshall, I'll let you go first. So,
I just want to throw in this one aspect, which is this is the perfect marriage because crypto has been kind of kept out of banking. Crypto companies were denied bank accounts, and you see this with the latest ruling under the current presidential administration that crypto companies and individuals holding digital assets were treated unfairly. You may have seen this news. Now we can finally be treated fairly, and I think we should put our money into the local credit unions, and we should bring them back into our communities. And so that is it's the perfect, finally there is this opportunity to have banking services fairly, and let's put it into our communities. So I just wanted to add that. I think that's really important. There's trillions of dollars that are going to come in, and they need a place to go, and they're going to leverage this technology with Metallicus and DeLand. And so what's next in my mind is really you're going to see the beginning of these integrations. You're going to see credit unions launching their own stable coins. You're going to see credit unions integrating DeLand coin to core and the ability to deposit your Bitcoin, your digital assets directly into the credit union, to inside the credit union. It's gone are the days that you're going to have to transfer to a third-party service, wait a few days,
Thank you.
maybe get held up. You're just going to log into your credit union, buy Bitcoin. Oh, you sold some at a profit and you want to get it into your checking account. It's already there because you're logged in, you're inside your checking account. So that's really the next step, is you're going to see our companies launching our products. They're going to be live inside the credit unions. And now you're going to be able to do this stuff with your credit union. You'll have the trust and safety and soundness of the time-tested institutions. And you're also going to have a safe and secure environment to do it. I think that was a big problem.
So huge unlock right there and statement from Marshall Hayner. And that's going to lead me over here to this last post that I'm going to read for you guys. Shout out to XPROG. Metallicus is a company that keeps showing up in the news because it's making new ways for the banks and credit unions to use digital money. That is an absolute fact. If we come over here to an event that is going to take place in October, Marshall Hayner, CEO of Metallicus, will be on stage at Max 2025, the biggest credit union event in the West. So Marshall Hayner is not capping when he says all of these things, ladies and gentlemen, and it's definitely a project that you guys should be paying attention to. Metal, XPR Network, Loan Protocol. This is not just another conference. Sponsors include Visa, MasterCard, and Metallicus' partner, Valera. Thousands of credit unions pros will be there to talk about tech, money, and the future of finance. The message is loud and clear. TradFi and digital assets are colliding. Metallicus is right in the middle of it all. And as you guys can see here, Marshall Hayner is going to be a speaker at this event. And so this is definitely going to be one to pay attention to. So I hope that in today's video breakdown, I was able to really start to help you with the mindset shift of not having to sell your utility digital assets for fiat currency, getting stuck back in the traditional financial system. And if you do sell for profit, say, for example, you did buy Bitcoin at $5, or in this case, you bought XRP at 50 cents and it goes all the way to $1,000. If you want to pay yourself, think about what the wealthy have done with their assets in traditional finance for years on years on years. They lend out their assets, they borrow against them, they remain and retain upside potential while mitigating their tax requirements, and they keep exposure into the asset class and they remain liquid. I cannot stress enough that now is the time to start to learn those strategies, start to incorporate them, start to think about them, brainstorm around them, how you're going to keep and maintain and grow your wealth in this new digital transformation instead of getting stuck back in traditional finance. As always, many blessings to you guys. Remember, none of this is financial advice. I'm not telling you guys to go out there and utilize the loan protocol for your digital assets, albeit I personally am. Always do your own personal research and assess your own risk properly. As always, many blessings to you guys. Be cognizant, be aware out there, and I will see you all in the next video breakdown.